All the listeners of Health Education Lecture Series, I'm your host, Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, homeopathy consultant. Let's join today's lecture today. We are discussing about the structure, formation, bony structure, especially, you can say, the bony structure of this body. And we have already discussed about the bones of the skull, parietal bone, occipital bone, sphenoid bone, and all these things, ethmoid bone. All these things have been already discussed in these lectures, and after that, we started discussing about the bones of the face. And bones of the face were also discussed, just like mandible, maxilla, nasal bones, conchi, and zygomatic process orbits were made by that one. And these are the structures made by used for making the face structures. So altogether about 22 bones are used to make the structure of skull and as well as of the face. And in this way we have already discussed their utility, their structures, and formations, and everything we have discussed about this thing. After that, we started discussing about the bones of neck. And the neck bones, everybody says that there should not be any bone, but there is still bones. Mostly everybody knows about that there is a bone, only the vertebral column. That the vertebral column is the only bony structure which holds the head with the body, with the thorax, you can say. But no, there are some other bones which are considered, some of the bones are not the perfect bones, but the cartilaginous bones, which are not complete bones, but they are still in the structures of having some hard consistency, like the, not like the muscles, not like flexibility, but even then they move freely. And when we were discussing about this thing, I told you that first of all, if we start from the back, there is a foramen magnum. Foramen magnum is a hole in the backside of our skull in the occipital bone. Occipital bone has a hole of different sizes. It's oval in shape sometimes, but it may be of different shapes, and it allows the substances, the vessels, the nerves, and everything to pass from the head to into the vertebral column. And relatively from the vertebral column, the messages go through nervous system to the brain in different various parts. Medulla oblongata, that's the hinge brain, you can say, the backside of the brain, and from which the 12 pairs of cranial nerves are issued and go downward into the vertebral column as well, to control the different areas of this body. And in this way, this foramen magnum is of big importance structurally, and also as a formation, it has big importance in the backside of the skull, in the occipital bone. And you can see the brain stem, medulla oblongata, spinal cord, meninges, vertebral arteries, nerves, all these things, and the accessory structures, they are supporting the pathway of this foramen magnum. Just like the musculatures, they are maintaining the structure of this foramen magnum in the back side of the skull, so that the passing structures should pass easily and normally, freely, without any hindrance, without any complications. But if ever there be any complications, any swelling or any tumors or anything happens in this area, that causes the problem for the passing of these vessels, blood vessels, the nervous system, lymph channels, and everything which is passing from the head downward to the body. And in this way, it can create problems not only in the lower portion but also in the brain sides. And even the problems of the brain side may be transmitted through the cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid, I talked about that one in many times. That this is cerebrospinal fluid is a fluid which circulates in the brain and in all the organs, just like cerebrum, cerebellum, mons, medulla oblongata. All these are the structures of the head, and in between these there is a gap. And between these there is a space, just like when I was describing the skull, I told you the internal structure of the skull. I was told you that, or just like in the village, in one village there are different houses, and all the houses are having their own boundaries, and every houses is attached to any street, so that house members can go out from that street, out of the village, out of the home, and same way go here and there. And those chambers, those empty spaces, those streets are known as ventricles, with which this CSF moves freely to all the organs. And the purpose of this CSF was to collect the garbage and also to dispose of and to supply the food materials. All the nerves, all the blood vessels which are coming from the heart and supplying the blood, food, air, everything, it is supplied through these chambers. And this is I requested many a times, please, when I'm talking, and do not call at that time. If ever you have any question, you can call me later on when this topic is over, at 408-687-1899. From 5 to 6 I am unable to take your phone calls, and I cannot answer at that time. So please, yeah, be aware of this thing, because many people start talking, calling when the radio program starts, and they start calling. So that's problem, that diverts my mind as well as, and moreover I cannot talk and cannot answer their calls in this way. So let's come to the topic. Cerebrospinal fluid, I have discussed about that. This is the media, you can say, in between the organs, uh, incoming and outcoming, garbage and food materials. All the blood vessels which are bringing the food materials, oxygens, are shedding off into the ventricles, into these CSF, and ultimately from that the organs pick up whatever they need from that one, and ultimately they dispose of their garbage into that. And all this thing goes down to the vertebral column. Means it's a common, whatever the consistency of this CSF, called cerebrospinal fluid, is in the brain, the same consistency is in the vertebral column. And in the vertebral column, all these fluids are moving freely, and the nerves into the vertebral columns are moving freely and are passing through their holes to control the different organs, or to control the informations of different organs. Just like I told you, after the foramen magnum, there are seven different ribs. Sorry, seven different vertebrae of the vertebral column, And in each vertebra, there is a hole for the nerves, for the blood vessels, nutrient foramens, and all that. So, from those holes, these nerves, which are shed off of or coming from the medulla oblongata downward into the spinal cord, the first seven nerves for right side and first seven nerves on the right side, they are issued to control the brachial plexus, to control our arms, you can say the shoulder and arms, all this thing, it is controlled by these seven nerves. And to facilitate to facilitate passages of these nerves from the foramen magnum, there is a structure, disc type, round structures, which supports the easy facility of moving these nerves from the foramen magnum to the vertebral column. And also the similar type of structures are adjusted in the vertebral holes, from which these nerves passes to their own specific area to control that specific area, just like the seven nerves pass from the cervical area, the neck. In other words, you can say from the neck area, there are seven vertebrae, and all the seven vertebrae on the right side and also on the left side, they are having holes. And from those holes, all the nerves which are supplying, means seven nerves right side, seven nerves left side, they are controlling the actions, reactions, and everything of the right side and left side of the arms. And if ever there be anything wrong in the passages, and that I told you about the disc, there is a disc, flexible disc, cartilaginous disc, and that facilitates the passages of nerve from the bundle into the vertebral column, and the nerves goes out. But if there be any swelling, or if there be any problem in the passages of the nerves, that will be shown into the distal parts of the organ where they supply it. Just distal part, just like the fingers. So if the nerves are supplying, issuing from the cervical area, and they are to control the whole arm and ultimate up to the tip of the fingers. Tip of the finger is considered as the distal area. And and the nearest portion from the vertebral column is known as the proximal area. And in this way, the foramen magnum is a proximal area for the all vertebral column, or for all the nerves which are issued from there and are issuing, going out from the foramen magnum to control the various organs, different portion of this body, for their functioning. And if ever there be any abnormality or anything happens over there, the information through these nerves goes to the brain or a specified area, so that it can get order back to control all those things. So this is what the structure is mainly. I'm discussing with you just the foramen magnum. It's like egg type, surrounded goal round area from which these nerves are passing, and this is situated in the back side of our skull, that is the occipital area. And the main medulla oblongata, spinal cord, meninges are the coverings, all the organs inside the brain, all the nerves which are passing through the vertebral column, they are covered, you can say they are wrapped, they are wrapped in a sensitive membrane, and that sensitive membrane is known as meninges. And if ever there be anything happens to this meninges, even before reaching to the nerves, or before they go to the nerves and damage the nerves, these meninges are affected in the initial stage. So these are the coverings on all the organs inside the brain, also the nerves which are passing from brain to the vertebral column. So these meninges are also passing through this foramen magnum and passing from head to the this vertebral column. Oval shape. It is measured. It is just for the sake of identification, just like autopsy, just like unknown bodies. If you are detecting in this way, and if you have to trace out whether this body belongs to male or whether this body belongs to female, it is assumed that smaller foramen oval is in the females, the larger and bigger foramen oval is in the male structures. But it should be it should be joining with all other structures, all other, just like pelvic area differentiations between the male and females, just like the shoulders. All these, there are many more things which we can use to identify the body, whether it belongs to male or whether it belongs to female. So in this way, this is also a one of the point, that if in case of a body, we have to identify. And at autopsy means when we go through, examine the dead body. So that autopsy says that the foramen magnum is larger in male, small in females, and it may be sometimes not round. Mostly it is oval type, and but sometimes it may be round, hexagonal, or rhomboid shape. So there are different type of things depending upon the structure, what type of structures and from which origin they are passing through. In this way, sometimes it is having a different type of structures. So after that, I have discussed with you about the bone, for one bone which is considered as the skull bone, but it is hanging from the skull bones. That is known as the steloid process. So yesterday I have discussed about the steloid process, and steloid process is a type of hanger with which many muscles and ligaments are attached, are tied up, so that the muscles can work freely and control their movements and control the organs which are designed for their controls. And in this way, the first steloid process, you can see that in the back of your ear, and this steroid process is in the temporal bone. I told you about that one. There were the seven different bones of the skull: frontal, occipital, parietal, two parietals, and as a temporal bone on both sides. And this temporal bone in the back of the ear, it has a steroid process. The importance of this steroid process is that many more structures are tied up with this steroid process, and so that that muscle can control the movements of various other organs, just like the ear, middle ear, just like the tonsils, just like the larynx and all that. So all those muscles are tied up to this one. This is just in the back of your ear. If you see that, there is something horn type hanging downward. So that's why it's known as steroid process. And when I was talking about the steroid process, I also told you that there is another steroid process, and that steroid process is in the radial steroid process. If you see on your wrist, towards your little finger, there is a radius, and that radius has a similar type of, because there are eight bones, small eight bones, which makes the wrist, so that the wrist can move easily in all the directions, front, back, circumductions, and everything. It can move that. So, and to control all these things, there are different muscles which controls the movement of the wrist, and in this way, to tie up those muscles, those ropes, you can say, there is a steroid process, and those muscles, ligaments are attached to that steroid process, so that the our wrist can move easily, freely, controlled by the muscles attached over there. So in this way, this steroid process was also of a big importance in the backside. And also, it's not only it is of importance, but it's also of a problem too, because Whatever the muscles are attached to this steroid process, I told you they control the tonsils. And if the tonsils are inflamed, there are different categories of the tonsils. In simple, even simple inflammations, it is not recovering in a short and a normal period of the inflammations. Ultimately, the swelling is increased in the tonsils, and that muscle which is tied up with the steroid process in the backside of the ear, that starts paining. Wherever, suppose you hang something by a nail in the wall, and whatever will be the pressure of your hanging substance with the nail, the pressure will be on that nail in the wall, and sometimes the nail may fall down, but it cannot fall down. This nail cannot fall down. This steroid process of the temporal bone do not fall down. It is just a horn type development of the temporal bone on both sides of our skull downward in the back side of the ear. But because most of the musculatures to control the other organs are attached to this steroid process, and whenever there is any problem in these, just like it controls the voice, larynx, it controls the pharynx, food pipes, and respiratory pipes as well, also the middle ear, also the tonsils, also the glossopharyngeal junction and the junction of the tongue, where the where your tongue is attached to the food pipes. So all these structures, musculatures, which are controlling these functions of the tonsils, of the tongue, of the breathing, of the food, they are passing, and their muscles are attached to this steroid process. And if they are enlarged more, the pain goes to the steroid process. And sometimes if there is a, just like quinsy is a type of disease in the tonsils. When the tonsils are increasing in their pain and in their development, just like I told you, the development of the tissues, first of all, whenever a tissue is damaged or diseased or sick, that's known as inflammation. And when the inflammation is not controlled by any means, in whatever way, it goes to its second stage, that is known as degeneration. Degeneration means some of the tissues are going to be damaged, they are not working normally. And after that, the third stage is the necrosis. Sometimes that portion becomes dead, and it's not responding to the actions which it is required to. Tonsils, tongue, all these have their functions. But now, because of the stages of inflammation, the last stage of the inflammation is known as quinsy. And there's a pus formation, there's a degenerative stage, pus formations, and there is a swelling inside the mouth. And the muscles which are controlling the tonsils, as well as they are tied up to the steroid process, at that time it causes pain. And sometimes it has learned that there is a pus formation. And also sometimes in a longer infections, there may be caries of the bones. Caries bone means destruction of the steroid process. This steroid process itself is destructed, and that's the worst type of condition, because it is controlling many other organs. It's controlling many other organs, musculatures. So therefore, it's a very important organ, very important bone of our skull bone. Mostly all other bones are just forming structures, forming globe of the head, and in a different structures, making holes, just like the orbits, to fix the eyes, just like the occipital, to pass on the nerves, foramen magnum. But this structure, the steroid process of the temporal bone, is of more importance than any other bone of the skull, because it is controlling the musculature. It is holding the musculatures which are controlling the other organs. So it means if those organs are suffering, ultimately that suffering will come to the steroid process. And as it goes worse in their conditions that may also cause damages to the steroid process, and not only one function, but there are various functions damaged. Voice will be damaged, respiratory system will be damaged, swallowing will be damaged. All these things happen, and this is known as quinsy. So in this way, I talk about with you about the steroid process, which is the hanging down horn like in the back of the ear, a projection, you can say, of bony projections in the back sides. And after that, in other words, you can say it's a anchoring substance. Many of the muscles are ligaments are anchored with this one. Ultimately, I talked about you about the hyoid bone. This hyoid bone is just in front of the our neck, and it's a U-shaped bone, just like English word U. You see that this is a U type bone, and in front of the neck, between the mandible, neck and the mandibles, and it is a floating bone. It is floating, it's not fixed, just like all other bones are fixed with the structures and they do not move. The structures under control of these bones, they move, but the bones do not move as a single part. In this way, but this I am telling about this hyoid bone. This is a movable bone in the skull. That's why called floating bone. It's a floating bone, and it also controls the movement of the tongue. It also helps in the swallowing process of the mouth. It also controls the speech. There's the larynx. Also controls the maintains the air coming and out inside the you can say the ventilations. So it controls many other functions because moving from here to there in this way, wherever the function is required, it controls that. When you eat, when you swallow, you see that your inside of the mouth is moving. In that way, this hyoid bone is the one which controls all these functions with their movements. If there be any happens, anything helps, or anything damaged inside the throat, and your swallowing, your this respiratory, your speech is not normal. And also at the same time, but you touch here, you touch your throat, oh, there is a pain. Even in dry cough and all these things, internal structures are having dryness, or internal structure are having any foreign body or anything else by which the internal structures are unable to breathe normally, the internal structures are unable to swallow normally. In that condition, you feel pain over here, difficulty in swallowing. So, in this way, this hyoid bone is also taking part in the similar processes as I told you. The other bones are taking part in the just like the stellate, because stellate is a bony structure. It's not doing anything, but it's supporting the other structures. In this way, the hyoid bone is also supporting the other structures which are performing different other functions inside the throat, for the respiration, for the food pipe or swallowing. All these things are functions are controlled or helped by. These are the helped by hyoid bone, you can say, in this way. And another one thing is in the cartilage. The cartilage that is known as thyroid cartilage, basically. The thyroid cartilage is also in front of our neck, where you see the thyroid glands, where you see the thyroid gland, and on both sides of our neck there is a gland, and there is a isthmus which join these two lobes of the thyroid gland. And this cartilage supports the sports and the joint union of that one, or you can say the sports from the outside. Inside is the joint of these two glands. Outside is a bone that is that of shape that's also known as Adam's apple. This bone, you can say, it's visible in some of the men's, but it's not visible in the females mostly. It's visible in the males mostly, not in all the males, and that is known as Adam's apple. And in Punjabi, in our language, it is known as kandi. In this way, in this way, it's an important structure, but it is a bony type of structure. It's a cartilaginous. You cannot say it bony. It's a cartilaginous structures and supports the underlying structures. Supports the underlying structure means they should not be hurt from the outside. And if the underlying structures are inflamed, if underlying structures are damaged, this is also transmitting the pain, transmitting the complaints by this one. And when you move this Adam's apple, you see that when you talk, when you swallow, it moves that one. When you drink anything, it moves that one. Then it's very painful. Normally, there may be pain if you are swallowing any solid things, but there should not be pain when you are swallowing liquid things. There should not be pain when you are just inhaling the air, swallowing the air only, empty swallowing. But if these things are damaged, these things are not normal in structures, and when they are not normal in structure, but they are supported by the Adam's apples, and then when you breathe, when you swallow, when you empty swallow, when you drink, even you feel pain in the throat. You feel pain in the throat. So this is the main function of thyroid cartilage. You must understand, when there is any problem in your throat and you feel pain in the throat here, the structures are inside, and outwardly under the skin, this Adam's apple is helping those structures so that they should not be damaged from outside. But if there be any damage from inside of food pipe, of windpipe, they are affected, and relatively their swelling covers the more area, and they presses the this thyroid cartilage, and it's painful. So in this way, this is what I told you about this structures. And after that, I told you about the trachea. And this trachea is also in the neck. Trachea is about 10 to 12 centimeter long, from upward of the neck under the mandible, and up to the bronchus area, where the bronchuses are divided into two portions. One goes for the right lungs, the other goes for the left lung. So main bronchus, basically it controls the sport from outside. It supports the main bronchus, main bronchial area, and this is 10 to 12 centimeter in long, and that moves. That's also moving. When you move, when you talk, when you breathe, it helps in that one. It supports the respiratory organs in that way. Main function of this one is to support. And when you inhale air inside, when you exhale the air, you put outside. Breathing means the breathing things. It moves in the same way. The second thing is this trachea is a cartilaginous substance, cartilaginous structure, and it is a C shape. If you make the C, it looks like C shape, just like this one. This is covering like this one, and under inside the throat there is a bronchus, and bronchus is here divided into two forms. In this way, this is a C-shaped structure of the cartilage type of bones, and it's not hard bones at that time, just like the other bones we see, humerus, femur, all these things. It's not like that. So it's a cartilaginous structure. And one other importance of this bone is, inside it has cilia. Cilias means hairy structures. Hairy structures means antennas. Antenna means which can attract the connections contract with the other organs, with the other sensation, and they can connect and they can control the sensations and feelings of there. So these are works as a antenna of our TV and radios, all that one. In this way, these cilias sometimes, due to some problems, they are damaged, and when they are damaged, definitely the sensations and feelings are lost. So in this way, this is considered that as if it is with the trachea, and you feel pain, you feel unconsciousness, you do not feel anything when the food goes downwards. And where it, and the more important indication of this one is the choking. When the cilias are damaged, most of the peoples most of the people feel choking when they eat, when they drink anything. It goes to the wrong way because the sensations are not transmitted properly, and this larynx, this trachea, is not controlling its function. Normally, wherever it should control, wherever it should contract, wherever it should relax, it's not doing that one because its cilias are damaged. Its cilia's indicators are damaged. So this cartilage has internal cilias for the protection of this thing. So in this way, these are the most important interior. Anterior means in front. Anterior structures in our throat, in our neck, basically, you can say that, and they are controlling the functions of the neck and functions of the internal organ. They are supporting basically all these bones, mostly, which I calculated here, just like the hyoid bone, trachea bone, thyroid cartilage. All these things are the supporting substances. They are supporting the working of the internal organs inside the neck. Whatever their function is, they are supporting them. They are not doing directly anything, but they are supporting all these things. Or the same way, this trachea, hyoid bone, thyroid cartilage. But in the other word, you can say that the Steeler's process is also supporting, but that is a perfect bone. Difference is that styloid process is a perfect bone structures, whereas the cartilages, hyoid bones, trachea, all these things are not the perfect bones. They are cartilaginous. Cartilaginous, again, I can explain you, just like in the backside of your nose is hard. It's a nasal bone structure. But if you move this one, the front of your nose, it's a cartilage. In this way, most of the many structures are inside the body which are cartilaginous, just like the xiphoid process here, where the ribs are diverting on both sides. In the initial stage, in the children's, you can say, before the adult age even, it is a soft, it's a soft type of bone. But when the person becomes old, like 50, 60, 60 years of age and above of that, then this is converted into hard bone. So ultimately it is same thing. The similar condition I told you about the skull. In the skull, when the globes are forming by the different bones, they unite in a structure in a way that they are forming the globes. But even then, there are some gaps remaining in front and in the back. And in front, it's known as fontanelles. These fontanelles are ultimately converted into complete compact bone, but previously they are cartilaginous, means they are soft bones. And first of all, it's a membrane, then after that, it's a cartilaginous, and after that, it's a converted into hard bone. That takes time. And we have the complete study of that one, the structure of this fontanelles. Frontal fontanelles is mainly of the big importance, just like the sphenoid bone. It is also giving some information of the internal structures of the brain. And this fountain is also giving us important structures, important information of the inside. And I have told you that in case of children, mostly when this is not converted into the bones, these are like cartilaginous structures. At that time, if children's are, because the food pipe, I told you, the food pipe goes up to the brain of the base, from inside up to the base of the brain, just like our gas pipes in the kitchen goes above the roof, above the level of the house, so that any gas, everything from the kitchen should go up in the environment. But in this way, this pipe, food pipe, if there is a formation of gas, definitely there is a formation of gas. I explained you many times, when the food goes into the intestines, and that's again fermented, again form the gas, that again gas passes from downward mostly. And in young age there is no flatus, but ultimately when the person becomes old and all the enzymes are less in quantity, then ultimately every person has flatus. And but sometimes these flattices are not passing downwardly, it goes upward, especially at the night time. At the night time it goes upward, and then in that conditions, it it crosses all the hurdles which it has crossed from upward to downward. It crosses all the hurdles from downward to upward. They open the flex pipes, and ultimately it reaches to the base of the brain. And from there, that gas becomes liquefied and ultimately drop down, just like the rain. Water becomes a steam, goes upward, becomes cold, and rain goes downward like the water. This is a circle. The same way, this gas formation from the stomach goes upward after passing all the hurdles towards upward, because there is a one type of direction of the food, that food should go from mouth to the downward, and but it is not designed to go backward. But if, because of some problems physiologically, anything, then this gas passes upward, and when it goes upward, ultimately it dries up over there, becomes liquefied, and then goes downwards, and that gas, watery discharge thickness, comes to our mouth, come to in our nose, and ultimately we have snuffles. We have snuffles. We have sinus problems. We have thick coating on the tongue in the morning. All these things can happen in these conditions. So all these organs, all these soft bones are supporting all these organs to function normally, to control their function normally. But if these are not normal, then ultimately there may be any type of symptoms may occur. So last thing for this lecture today is the vertebral column. I think most of the things has been discussed, and I have told you about that one. In the back side, if you have to trace it, if you have to trace the trachea from the back side, in front you can see that Adam's apple is moving, and underneath there is a cartilage is moving. When you move, when you swallow, you can feel it. But sometimes it's a big prominent, Adam's apple is a big prominent in some of the persons, but some of the persons are not, it's not visible. Mostly in the girls and the females, it's not visible, but it is there and supporting the internal organs of food pipes and the respiratory organs for their functions. But if and not only their own direct disease, but it is the indirect disease they are suffering. If food pipe is not normal, if wind pipe is not normal, if anything happens to the internal these organs, then it suffers, and you feel pain in the tracheal areas. So this is what, in the back side, if you have to trace out the trachea from the back side, here you can trace it by your fingers. In the back side, that's known as surface anatomy of anything. Surface anatomy means, just like I can give you the example, organs of the chest, heart, lungs, heart valves, heart, the arteries, and all these things. These are the structures. And if you have to trace from outside without opening the chest, there are some measurements. There are some measurements, and that is known as surface anatomy. And for the surface anatomy of this trachea, because we are at neck, not at chest. When I will come to the chest, I will explain everything where you can trace from outside where is the heart, where is the valves, different valves. There are many more valves in the heart, and where they are, you can trace it from outside on the chest without opening the chest. That's known as surface anatomy. And I'm talking about the surface anatomy of this trachea, because it's the main important organ which is controlling the windpipe. If we cannot breathe for 3 to 5 minutes, we are dead. And this trachea is controlling, this trachea is supporting this important structures, that this way out. This is the way out of our survival. That is why it is supported by the nature by providing this cartilaginous bone, that is trachea. And signals are provided to this bone like cilia, so that it should be a sensitive type of bone internally, and can control the function and can control the sensations by the cilia. If you go backside, I told you there are cervical 7 vertebrae in the neck, and from sixth cervical vertebra, if you count from the foramen magnum, that is the hole inside the occipital area, and after that, the first vertebra, that is of different kind. First vertebra is a different kind than to the other vertebrae. Other vertebrae are having horns outside. Other vertebrae are horns outside, so that the muscle ligaments can attach to that one to bind the things over there. But foramen the atlas vertebra, this is the first vertebra in the cervical area, which is attached to the foramen magnum. It's a type of round type, just like you hook up your trolley with the tractor. I think most of the people know about that one. When the tractor, we are having trolley and tractors, and we attach the tractor with the trolley, or we trolley with the tractors. How they are hooked up with each other. They are hooked up with each other, and they are stuck over there. In this way, the first vertebra is atlas. It's known as atlas vertebra, and it's hooks up into the foramen magnum. This is the first one. And after that, you have to count from first onward 6 vertebrae. So where you see from the backside, it's very easy. If you go backside and you trace it, and you can trace it up to the 7th vertebra in the neck. So where the 6th vertebra is situated, where the 6th vertebra is situated, from that very point up to the 5th thoracic vertebra, because there are first 7 vertebrae which are in the area of neck, and after the area of neck, just parallel to the shoulder blades, then there are 12 different vertebrae. They are known as thoracic vertebrae. And these are 12 in numbers. And they are holding the ribs, each ribs on both sides. And there are spots in the vertebrae where the ribs are attached in the back, and ribs are attached in the front with the sternum. So these are the 12 in number. But not all the ribs. I will tell you about the ribs. But not all the ribs are attached to these vertebrae. That is the second chapter. I will describe about that one. So in this way, you can trace out where is trachea. If you cannot do it from front side, and you want to identify it where it will be ultimately, then it is from the 6th cervical vertebra to 5th thoracic vertebra. This is the level where the trachea is, because its length is 10 to 12 centimeter. Because from the main bronchus to the right and left bronchus, main bronchus which comes backside from the nose, and nose, then larynx, and then a bronchus, and then after the epiglottis there is a bronchus. And epiglottis is as an area where there is a exchange, where there is a exchange. The respiratory problem, this larynx, is coming from nose and it is backward, and the food pipe is in front. And when the epiglottis area reaches, the food pipe goes backside, respiratory larynx come to front, because the lungs are the first, food pipe is downward. So ultimately there is a valve, there is a valve which controls this thing. When you are breathing, this valve of the respiration is open. When you eat, then the valve of the respiration is closed, and the food goes to the food pipes. So there is a type of junction or custom department, you can say. It's a custom department at that area. So in this way, you can imagine that this is a long type of, it's a ring type, it's not a structure just like spring. You see that, no? Like a spring, it's a that type of structures, but cartilaginous structures, not fixed bone structures. And it is controlling from the epiglottis area downward. From after the epiglottis area, the respiratory passages, or the pipe which comes for the respiration, is known as bronchus. That's the main bronchus. And then that main bronchus is divided into two portions, which one will go to the right lungs, the other one goes to the left lung. So in this way, this controls outwardly, supports outwardly to this portion of the respiratory pipe, larynx. So in this way, this is the importance of this thing. And this also helps when you cough, when you have a forceful cough. This underlying soft structure should not be ruptured, teared off. No, it supports the bone. What you do when you cough, automatically your hand goes to the throat to support that one. So there should not be any pain, or means it should not burst out. That is why the same thing is done by the nature, that when you cough, when you swallow, when you breathe, everything, and if it's a hard breathing, if it's a hard structure swallowed, ultimately there should not be anything problem to burst it out. This trachea supports that area, so that you are protected. So in this way, today I have discussed about the bones of the neck in front and also of the out back side. So these are the structures, and this is the importance of these structures I have told you. Next day, our lecture will be in Punjabi, and we will discuss the bones of the chest. Simply, everybody knows about there are ribs. Everybody knows there's a vertebral column. Everybody knows about there is in front there is a sternum, maybe, but still there are other minute things you must know about the structures of the chest. So I will describe it tomorrow in Punjabi in my programs. So thank you for all. I am your host Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, homeopathy consultant. And if ever and any times you are suffering from any disease at any age, and you are desperate from the treatments, you can call me to get your second opinion about your disease, also about your treatments. I can guide you according to the nature's principle. When there was no medical science, how the nature was curing the persons, curing the humanity, because nature was curing. That's why we are surviving. Otherwise, there were many more, many epidemic diseases, endemic diseases, pandemic diseases, and this life might have finished. But no, we are surviving. We are surviving because nature has its own process to protect the life, and we follow those things, how the nature was protecting the life. In this way, when we are doing any treatment for any disease and not getting well, it means we are something doing which is against the nature. We are doing against the nature. And that's why we are not able to cure the things. And because nature's process is according to the nature. The nature has structured this body. How it becomes sick, how it can relieve of these pains, nature knows about that one. And how nature does it, we have studied. That is the study of the medical science. How this nature was doing before the medical science, this is what I can guide you. I can guide you, I can tell you that in this condition, this is the process of the nature, and your treatment, whether it is going according to that principle or not, whether it is following that principles or not. If it's not, then I can guide you about that one. And even if you want to get treatment as is homeopathic treatments and a perfect approach to your health, you can call me at 408 687 1899. Email address homeomedicine, HOMEOMEDICINE at yahoo.com. So, anytime if you are suffering from any disease, for any opinion, you can call me 408 687 1899. Rabarakha. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow in the new programs. Okay, sir. Thank you. And yes, tomorrow's program will be in Hindi because we have already discussed all these things in Punjabi. So tomorrow's program will be in Hindi programs. Thank you.